Welcome to the Keeping You On Stage podcast. Join us as we dive into the vibrant world of dance, sharing our insights and experiences while spotlighting the incredible talents within our community. Each episode features engaging conversations with guests who bring their unique expertise and stories to the table, enriching our understanding of this beautiful art form. Our motto, Keeping You On Stage, drives our mission to celebrate and uplift dancers of all backgrounds. Whether you're a beginner, a seasoned performer, or a passionate enthusiast, this podcast is your backstage pass into the dance world. Tune in and let's keep the spotlight shining bright. Today we have the pleasure of sitting down with someone who is a true force in the world of dancer wellness and movement education, Christine Jones. Christine has spent the last 2 decades helping, teaching, and inspiring dancers to move beyond their limitations to reach their full potential. She's created a variety of programs that address both the physical and mental side of dance conditioning. She is passionate, driven, and when she's not working hard on move method, she's out playing hard with her family. Christine is a former dancer and holds a BS degree in exercise physiology from the University of Utah. She is a fully certified STOTT Pilates instructor and founder of Intermountain Pilates Training Center in Utah. And she has her 200 and 500 hour Yoga Alliance training. She is also a presenter at Dance Teacher Summit. Christine is an advocate for healthy physical, mental, and emotional development of dancers. Welcome to the show, Christine. Let's start with your background.
Okay.
You were a dancer. Can you take us back to what first pulled you into the dance world?
I don't really actually totally know. I just started dancing. My mom put me in ballet, and then I did ballet for a long time only. So probably pretty young, like 4, 5, and then just stuck with it. I had so many issues, like pretty significant, so I ended up taking a year off. So my mom kept going into studio, she's in pain. She's in a lot of pain. And they're like, oh, it's probably something she's doing outside of dance. But eventually my doctor was like, no, it's definitely dance. So she either needs to take a break or get knee surgery. So I took a break. And then when I went back, I did comp dance. So I kind of got into the comp dance world and then did high school dance and really quit dancing after high school due to so many injuries, so much pain. And I mean, I kept dancing for fun, like in college when I was at the U, I would take open classes, but it gets to a point where it's not worth it. The pain isn't worth it. And so I was like, well, I started teaching and then got into exercise physiology and Pilates and spent my 20s and 30s rehabbing all my issues, my torn hamstrings, my messed up knees. And it worked. I was able to not have to ever get surgery for my knees and stuff like that. We'll see where I'm at when I'm 70, but for now we're good. And so I really think that experience kind of opened up a side of my brain that was like, am I teaching in a way that's promoting injury, or am I teaching in a way that's going to get them from A to B in the safest, most effective way? So it made me start questioning how I was teaching. And then really I got into anatomy. I was very interested in that because it kind of doesn't go along with a lot of stuff we're taught in dance.
Yeah.
Like, don't use your hip flexor to lift your leg. Well, you have to use your hip flexor to lift your leg.
Yeah.
So we're teaching, and it's like, I get it. Sometimes we're trying to teach figuratively, we're using figurative speech rather than literal speech. But there's a lot of things in dance that we were told were bad muscles to use, like your quad or your hip, or lift from underneath, but you can't. Your hamstring's not a hip flexor. So it really made me start going, are these lining up? So I very much started teaching from an anatomical perspective versus an artistic perspective. And then I think if you get the anatomy right, the artistry comes. Does that make sense? So I took a much more anatomical approach, and it's been effective.
Would you say that you being a dancer and getting the injuries that you did kind of
100%.
led?
That's when I'm like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
We should not be creating injuries that we can prevent. Even looking past the fact that it's a human, it's a person.
Yeah.
They're not just going to be a dancer forever. They're going to be a person that wants to feel good in their body. And so I think that has to be something that's a goal for all of us. Let's train in the best way to reduce the risk of injury so people can just live healthier lives. Because most people aren't going to dance. Right. If you understand the muscles that create the movement in the joint and the movement you're trying to achieve, like a devil kick.
Yeah.
So I can help get dancers into a much higher leg hold than they thought that they could do because they just weren't using the right muscles. So this is your primary hip flexor. And it's like but the dancers are like, oh, I'm gripping in my hip. I'm like, what do you mean you're gripping in your hip? You're using your hip?
Yeah.
Because if I do this with a weight, am I gripping in my bicep or am I using my bicep? Same your hip flexor's doing this, right? And so that is uncomfortable to hold it, challenging, but it's not bad.
You're not going like this, you're going like this.
Go like this, right? And that's all hip flexor.
Yeah.
All hip flexor. Yeah. So it's really fun to watch. I can take a dancer and be like, well, use that. They're like, oh, I just got 2 more inches. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, yeah, just use the right muscle.
Yeah.
And if they don't use the hip flexor, they'll hike their hip because there's like 8 different muscles that can flex the hip. So I think that's the thing people have to understand. Hip extension and arabesque is very simple. It's your glute max.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then your hamstrings help. But it's so straightforward. The hip is not that the front of the hip is less straightforward because muscles from the back can assist in hip flexion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's literally like you have your primary hip flexor and you have a bunch of secondary hip flexors. And like, for example, the quad is very powerful hip flexor below 90, which we don't want them to lift with their quad. Well, guess what? Beyond 90, you don't have to.
No.
The quad kind of turns off. And I think the issue is if we tell dancers don't feel their use their quad, they're never going to get past 90 because we have to go through that range of motion.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, I think stepping away from tradition, questioning it just a little bit, doesn't mean we can't be figurative in that we're saying, I want you to have the feeling of lifting from underneath because that will encourage, but understand you're not really going to lift from you're going to lift from the front of the hip. That's what I kind of like to do with teachers. I'm like, let's like take our dance teacher hat off for a minute and don't get because in dance, there's a bit of it. Like, I am a dancer.
Yeah.
If you threaten, if I say that's maybe the muscle, they're like, they're threatening me. It's personal. But you're not a dancer. You're a person.
Yes.
You teach, you did dance, you're a mom, you're this. You're so many things. So rather than taking it, so I always like to say, let's just like take dancer, set it aside. Let's just look at functional movement and understand what muscles create the movement.
Yeah.
You have to have a basic understanding because if we don't, we're misinforming our dancers.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many dancers say, well, I'm not supposed to feel it there. And I'm like, you do understand that's impossible to lift your leg this high and not feel it in the hip socket. Like it's just anatomy. So if we can talk just anatomy, I'm usually able to get teachers to be like, oh yeah, okay, I can see that. Like the artistry is the figurative stuff. Like I get all of that, but I'm a very literal teacher because I'm all about muscle activation. But it is a challenge. You know, I have my people, like the people who train through us, they want to know this stuff. And they're like, yeah, I could have had better training. Or I think there's that part where you're like, how do I accelerate my the teaching? If you really know how the body works, you can accelerate things so quickly and you can speak to the anatomy and the artistry. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's through the anatomy that you get the beautiful lines. Because one of my least favorite things is it turned in ballet. It's just not pretty. And that's where I'm like, we're actually losing the aesthetics of dance. I think we're losing the aesthetic of dance because we're pushing into areas we don't really know how to teach. And the thing with dancers that they're so good at is creating movement, period.
Yeah.
You tell them they will figure out a way with 7 of the wrong muscles, but they will get there. But the alignment's not right. And I am an alignment person because it's how your body works. Like dance is already totally against like our nature probably. So how do we make it work within the structure that we have? Well, you have to apply some basic anatomy principles. Yeah. And I think that's actually how you get the beautiful lines. Yeah. So if you learn to engage the right muscles and then you train those, you're protecting your joints. You know what I mean? You're protecting your not only are you encouraging the movement to happen more effectively, but you really are kind of safeguarding. We know that the hip in dancers is pretty imbalanced between strength and flexibility. Well, it needs to be balanced in each muscle group in strength and flexibility. So
what inspired you to create the program, and how is it different from what's traditionally taught in dance classes?
well, I didn't set out to create it. So it really just happened. Got into Pilates, just me doing it. I liked it. And I was like, oh, this is way good for dancers. So I went through all the Pilates training, and I had a Pilates studio, and I was kind of doing like dancer classes and then just people classes. But I started having kids, and I was like, I don't want the studio anymore. Like, I just decided to sell it.
Okay.
So at that time, I really was actually going to step back from dance and just do mom. My cousin owns Highlight Dance, and she's like, no, please don't leave. Just come out once a week. You can bring your kids, I'll watch them. You know what I mean? So I was like, but I had said, let me just do more conditioning for the dancers, just because I don't want to spend my weekends doing comp right now. I'll get back to that probably when like, they dance. But so I'd step back from being more in like a director role of, your weekends at convention and comp, which I love. I love the comp world. I love it. It's so much fun. But I had babies. So I was like, it's not for me right now. So anyway, I started doing this class. It was based on dance, what I know about the body, Pilates, yoga, and I just kind of started doing it. And probably, honestly, I look back and I'm sure it was in a response to the hypermobility that was being pushed at the time, and me going, this isn't going to end well. Like, this is too extreme, too fast. So it was a conditioning class to increase their flexibility at a safe and effective rate, but also address strength, because you can't have healthy flexibility without strength. You really have to focus on both of them. And in fact, sometimes you're not flexible because you have a muscle weakness. So if you can figure out, like, it's called muscle guarding. So if you can address that, you can improve flexibility a lot by just correcting that imbalance. So it's pretty interesting. So it's kind of I didn't mean to. So I'd started doing it. Those dancers went to convention. It's probably like 2015 that year. And a few studios had come up to my cousins, and they're like, what are your dancers doing? They look really good this year. And they start extra ballet. That was kind of the assumption, like the movement looks more connected, they just look seamless. And she's like, well, no, they're doing some conditioning class that Christine started. And they're like, oh, okay, well, what's it called? And she's like, I don't know. I don't know what it's called anything. I think it's just a class. So teachers reached out locally. And then I started the class there, the program. I still didn't have a name. I was like, yeah, I'll bring my program to you. Sure. I don't know. So then we started to outgrow that. So I trained some people to do what I was doing. And then I got invited to present at Dance Teachers Summit. And so not prepared for like that, what the F that created. And so then people were like, wow, so I go there and I do this class. It was very funny because I was teaching them it was like Mia Michaels, all the big, my assistant came, she's like, why would they put you with all these huge, like Christine Jones from Utah? We don't know who she is at all. But the title of my class was like, Weekly Stretch Curriculum for Dancers ages 5 and up. The class was packed, packed. And to the point that the guy's like, we have to start turning people away. And I was going to do a class, like a physical class, but we couldn't do the physical class. And I was like, oh, I'm a little nervous. It was a little bit nerve wracking because I was really like, I saw the lineup. I was like, well, it's just going to be me and my assistants, and and maybe 3 or 4 people that came to our booth. They're like, oh, I'm kind of interested. So I quickly realized that, and I wasn't even planning to do a flexibility program. I'm much more of a conditioning. Like, I like to do all of it. But what everyone wanted was the flexibility, which was crazy to me because we all assume dancers know how to stretch. Dancers don't know how to stretch. We're the worst stretchers ever. And so as the demand started to increase in terms of flexibility and hypermobility, I think more and more studios are like, we actually really don't know how to get them there. So then I was like, well, give me your email. I guess I'll get you something. So I came up with a name. I actually wanted to be MOVE Method, but it was taken by a moving company. I want to be like, you know what? That's the name I want. So we played with the spelling, and I was like, okay, whatever. It's artistic, right? So then I developed like a whole online training. I tell everybody, if I had known what that would take, I would have never started. So I'm kind of glad I just didn't know. Because once I tell you I'm going to do it, I will do it. I'm not going to be like, never mind. I was like, give me your emails and we'll get you a training. And then we started. I was like, oh, what was I thinking? I mean, this is back in the day where I was like on WordPress. It was horrible. 29 plugins. One updates, the whole thing crashes. So it was just, so anyway,
I love that.
It just, apparently there was a need.
Sure.
And it wasn't, it was to solve a problem I was seeing within our studio. And then it turned into solving a problem a lot of people are experiencing at their studios.
Right.
And I think as much as we see the crazy extreme stretching, it's like everything. We see the extremes, but most people really want to do things safely and effectively. You know, I think more people are actually much more aligned in that. I mean, if you're driven only to win, then yeah, you're probably not going to care. But those aren't the people that I work with,
Right.
because that's not winning at all costs is not acceptable for me, because you're doing that with young kids that really don't get to say. You know what I'm saying? Like, your influence on them is a lot. So I think winning's great, but I would rather see a healthy dancer. And I always like say, like, it's a slow progression. Don't peak when you're 10.
Yeah.
Like, where are you going to go from there? That's like not the time to peak. But I think that's a really small percentage.
Right.
Really, when we step back and look at the dance industry, most people, I think, are interested in doing it in a safe way.
Oh, yeah, I think so too. I just don't think we have the tools and knowledge because, and even our teachers, like we look back at our teachers, I had quite a few teachers that were very into, like, making sure that you were doing things properly.
Would you still use a DVD player? Like, or a VHS? Like, you're not going to use, like, we realized that was like, it just wasn't that effective.
Yeah.
So we have to be willing to step away from tradition and question it.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing.
No.
I think everyone's doing the best at the time that they're doing it. And there was limited access to knowledge, but now we have so much access that you really can get if you want to learn, you can find a training that will teach you about movement and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You don't have to go get a college degree. So,
well, and the whole point, like, we want to be able to live long lives and be healthy in our bodies and in our minds, and we have, because we're dancing so much earlier and getting into competition so much earlier, we need to be learning this stuff way earlier.
yeah,
You know what I
if we're
mean?
going to push the demands, then you have to support it with proper conditioning. And the sports world understands it. And if you look at the way athletic training has changed in the last 10 years, they're producing greater athletes than they've ever had with fewer injuries. It's not that they're not still getting hurt. They're still getting, if you play a sport, your risk of injury goes up. And of course, depending on the sport, right?
Yeah.
But with dance, we didn't see that. We pushed the demands, but we didn't support it with physical training.
Right.
It was like, well, just do more of your dance moves. Well, that's actually the way to get hurt. Repetition is one of the reasons that the injury rate is so high. So you have to find the balance between when do we stick with repetition and when do we fit in some conditioning exercises that might not look so much like dance, but they're conditioning the same muscles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think if we're going to put the demand here, we can't just say good luck. Like, there has to be a way. We have to provide a physical training component that can take them, that can create that technical growth. If we want to push technical growth, we have to support the technical growth. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So I think there was a disconnect there for a moment, based on the fact that we just really haven't looked at science when it comes to dance, because it's an art. I think we got so stuck in it. Well, dance is an art, it's not a sport. And I think it's both. I think it's I think there's absolutely an athletic component to dance now. Look at collegiate dance.
Oh,
right. You have to be an athlete if you're going to be in collegiate dance.
For sure.
So, yeah. So I think that's kind of was the disconnect. We pushed the limits without training to support it.
Yeah.
Because you can push the limits. You can totally do that, but you have to condition for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and then even just me growing up, being in so many ballet classes with teachers, giving analogies or whatever the word is of, just so many amazing, beautiful things, and I just had so many of those teachers that did those things.
You still didn't really know what they were talking about.
Yes. Or, I mean, like, one of the things that I was taught was, like, when you were extending your leg or your arm or whatever it is, like, one of the analogies was, like, think about Beauty and the Beast when the beast turns into, like, the man and there's, like, light coming from his
Like,
fingers.
I don't know how to make that
And but
happen.
yes, like, you can imagine it.
But, like, tell me how.
Exactly, and
Mhm.
it was, like, such a beautiful analogy, or, like, even, like, or even
So much interpretation.
pretend like you're a tree or something,
Yeah.
like, where you're trying to reach for the sun this way, and then you're grounding yourself, your roots down into the ground, and it's, like, so true.
It is.
But as a young dancer, though, I'm just looking back at my younger self, like, that actually did make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Because I could picture that, like, I knew what a flower did, like, it grew to the sky, to the sun, and then it was rooted down into the ground. But I'm just trying to think, like, what goes on in a young dancer's brain, because I was there once, but, like, what does it feel like to actually do it properly? Like, I don't even know if this makes sense, but, like, when we do point shoe fittings, it's so important for a first-time ballerina to know what it feels like, what a bad point shoe feels like, and what a point shoe feels like that, I mean, it doesn't feel good. Like, point is just not
Right. It's
natural.
not comfortable period.
Yeah, but what is going to be safer, you know what I mean? And so it's so important for them to learn what sinking feels like and what twisting feels like, or sickling, or,
Because they're all words.
Yes.
But what does it mean?
Exactly. It's so important for these young dancers to learn what it actually feels like.
So I think there's a balance. So I always tell the kids, like, I'm going to be very literal. I'm going to tell you the exact place I want you to feel it.
Yeah.
When you go to your combo classes and you have teachers that are more figurative, because there's a place for it, for sure. And that's where the artistry is. But without the proper placement, and I teach it young, I get on proper placement day one, because they're very mobile at that age. And I do think that's where a lot of bad habits are starting. And I think people underestimate how much kids actually want to know.
Yeah.
They love when I start talking about, like, what's really happening in their body. They're very interested.
Yeah.
And they do want to do it right. So I think, again, the art of dance, we love those things. But a flower to you or a tree is different than a tree to this person. So if we're just doing creative dance, that's one thing.
Yeah.
If we're doing technique, for me, I don't use figurative speech in technique ever. It's muscle recruitment. Like, it's literally like, and when I say your scapulas are wrapping around your rib cage, I literally mean that. I'm like, guys, this isn't like a pretend thing. I'll go to their backs and be like, they just wrapped around your rib cage. So that's not me coming up with a fun thing to say. I'm actually telling you, and then let's feel what that feels like, and I'll put them in position to feel that. That's what's happening. And I actually think, like, my brain is like, I love the arts. I love it. I'm very creative, but I also like clarity. So just tell me how to do it. And it takes the guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, then of course we're going to use figurative speech.
Yes.
So that is where I would say, like, every teacher would benefit from a basic breakdown on mechanics. Like, this is your skeletal system. These are the movements available at each joint. This is flexion. This is extension. This is external and internal rotation. And then these are the muscles that create it. You don't need to know every name, but you need to know where they're located.
Yeah.
You might want to know where they are, like, so that when we say don't use the quad, I then say, well, do you want them to straighten their knee? Like, that was, to this day, I laugh at that. My teachers are always like, straighten your knee. Don't use your quad. I was like, what? And I didn't know as a kid. They're like, your knee was always bent. I was like, but you're going to use my quad. I was the only non-hyperextended kid in there. I had to use my quad. Like, you didn't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Sadly. And it was a bad cue. Like, I'm like, guys, your quads straighten your knees. That's just mechanics. Now, it doesn't mean like, again, if you're super hyperextended, you're having a different experience. You didn't have to use your quad because you just sunk into your joint. But you still should learn how to use your quad because it's a valuable muscle. It'll protect their knees. So I think, like, there's a place and time for figurative speech, but then there's a place and time to be quite literal and teach proper muscle activation so we don't demonize the quad.
Yeah.
And I don't even know where that came from. Oh, do. They didn't want you to have big quads. But using your quad doesn't make it big. That's like, but just using my bicep in daily life, is that gonna just make, no, I'm gonna have to go put some weight on,
Yeah.
so I'm not doing squats, I'm just straining my leg. Like, that's just the function. So I'm like, we need to rethink that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's actually significant.
Mhm.
Turnout, don't even get me started on how to access your turnout muscles,
Right.
because I've had ballet teachers quit at our studio because of me, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I understand that you want to tell them to use their glute maximus,
Right.
because it's a very powerful muscle, easy to access. But if they don't learn how to use their deep 6 external hip rotators, you are setting them up for failure. Literally, they will not be able to sustain their turnout in front or to the side.
Yeah.
The only area is going to be behind them, because that's where the glute is a powerful hip. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I get it. I get that you want them to be activated there, but stop having them tuck their pelvis, because it's going against biomechanics. Like, it's not the right way to train your turnout muscles.
Yeah.
Put them in a clamshell. Put a TheraBand around it. Have them do 16 clamshells. If they can't do it, their turnout muscles aren't working. Like, they should easily be able to do 16.
Yeah.
Most kids I work with can't do 16 at first.
Really?
Cannot, because they haven't been using their glute maximus. I mean, they haven't been using their turnout muscles. They've been pressing their pelvis forward and activating the glute.
Interesting.
That's one of my biggest ones, because I do think that's probably where so many knee issues come from. And it's just not it's like, I'm like, then why would their name be external hip rotator? Why would the turnout muscles be named external hip rotators if that wasn't their job? So I think we have to, like, that's where I start saying, like, you just have to understand.
Yeah.
Probably around the hip is the most important. I mean, I would say everywhere, but the hip is every movement comes there. And so with my daughter, we trained everything properly. She doesn't have to think about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's 13, it's all just there.
Yeah.
Her turnout is just there because she did it properly. And she's 13, and now how much does she have to go? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's done. That is done. That's never going to go away for her. She knows she's not hyperextended. She knows how to use her quad. That's done. She never is told to straighten her leg.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe sometimes at the height of your ground bottom, hamstrings,
Yeah.
stretch your hamstrings enough, maybe. But you know what I'm saying? So, like, we're really doing dancers such a disservice by not just being quite, like, literal. And that's where I run into, like, well, this is what my teacher taught me, ego. And I'm like, and your teacher meant well.
Yes.
They did. They loved you. They taught you what they knew. Also, if they were in a ballet school, they were dealing with most people with 180-degree rotation. So that cue worked, because you were going to activate your turnout muscles, period. You know what I'm saying? But when you're working with probably mostly comp dancers, is where I really see the jazz world, where we have to be so specific because they're crossing genres so much. We don't have 10 hours a week to work on activation of the turnout muscles, because then they're going to go to jazz and they're going to go back to parallel.
Yeah.
So that's where I get, like, we just don't have time to mess around with it. You have to make sure those are the muscles they are using. Do a few tests, not that hard, because you're not benefiting them. Jazz is relying on ballet to send them in so they can do a fouette with turnout, and they can't. Whereas there's a disconnect. Like, it has to, if we have dancers doing so many genres, we have to get even more specific, I think, with muscle activation. I was talking to somebody the other day, I'm like, we don't have the luxury of time anymore through repetition. We were dancing far fewer genres, far fewer skills, no social media. How many skills were there when we were dancing? 20? Like, seriously. Like, how many are there now? I did a list, 180. If I included acro, I got a little crazy about it one day. My husband's like, wow, you really can. Like, I was like, I got to go work on a course. Look at how many dance skills there are. Like, because I actually was quite curious, but with the acro and, like, just all the tricks, which I have no problem with these things. I love them. They're entertaining. But the demand for teachers is so challenging now. Not only do you have to share your genre with 4 other genres, in jazz, hip hop, acro, we now have 100 skills. How in the world are you going to get them from PK turns to 5/4 or whatever it is now? Like, without getting really specific. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just think we used to have the luxury of time to allow. We could just use dance to create the muscle recruitment, but we don't have that time. The demands are too high now. So, like, we have higher demands, less time. We used to have fewer demands, more time. So we had that luxury, but I don't think we have that anymore. if we really want to get results. That's so much easier to teach, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're kind
it's-
of like
yeah.
unlearning everything that you learned.
Every one of us was told to squeeze our butts.
Yeah.
Pinch and
Mhm.
penny.
Wait.
How we did it, you had to extend your hips.
Mhm.
So the glute maximus is a hip extensor. In neutral, it'll still work because it holds you upright. So it's active, but I actually tell them, like, you don't want to be like, if you actually over engage it, you lose some of your mobility. So you lose some of that freedom in your hip. You know what I'm saying? So it's the art, because it is an art of finding your deep six. But once you find them, and bands, there's a lot of effective ways. Well, you just take somebody into flexion, because now I can't use my butt, and then have them turn out. They can't, then they're not using their deep six. And if they go to releve and can't maintain their turnout because the pelvis probably changed, you know what I mean? Not using their deep six. So it again, that's where I think the anatomical perspective takes the emotion out of it. It doesn't have to be a he said, she said. I'm like, oh, this is actually how the muscle works. And I can show you, like on a skeleton, these muscles go off your pelvis onto your hip bone. They are so good at what they do. They are so good at what they do. Let them do their job. And then the glute can work how it wants to work. And then the hip flexor. Does that make sense? So every muscle group is doing its job, then they're not crossing over and competing. It's like too many cooks in the kitchen. Like, let each muscle create the movement it was designed to do, and it's going to be so much easier. Rather than like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like very confused. Like, which muscle should I use now? Where do I? And now I hurt. But grinding in your hips doesn't need to be a part of life. Like, just like, but every dancer's like, why are my hips grinding? I'm like, well, you probably have an imbalance in there. And we could probably fix it pretty quickly. And I actually think it's really fun, like, to just kind of take the ego. I mean, we have egos. Everybody has an ego. But be like, oh, I'm not doing anything wrong. And I always told you, like, it's not wrong that you taught that. I taught that. We all taught that. We were taught that. But is there a better way? So I always just go like, let's not go like wrong, right? Let's do best and better. Like, what's our best practice here to get results safely and effectively, but quickly? Because again, everybody's like, get me from A to B yesterday, you know? So patience is no longer a virtue. And so,
like I said before, you have to undo so much tradition. Just it's a lot of undoing and then building back up the right way. So there's a lot to that. Like, I mean, you're just skimming the surface, I feel like.
Yes.
Like, even some of these things that you're talking about, like the deep six, like, I'm like, what is that?
Okay. So they're the muscles.
if you have the hips, like the pelvis, there are 6 muscles that come off the back of your pelvis. So if this were my butt and they would come around and, you know, this bone right here, they attach to that. I'm breaking them down simply. But when a muscle shortens, I mean, they are really so good at what they do if you let them do their job. So it literally just turns the greater trochanter back. And it's beautiful when it's done right. There's no pain. Like they're so good at what they do, but we don't use them because they are a deeper muscle and they're designed for endurance. So they're actually meant to work, stabilize the pelvis, create turnout, and they work for a long, long, long time. They could get you through a 4 or 5 hour class if they're properly trained. Then the glute maximus, big like butt muscle, it's actually a hip extensor. So it's what we use to get to like our arabesque, agitaria, our conjugate. We love that muscle too, but it's a power muscle. So it's what creates the movement. The deep six sustain the movement is like how I try to explain it. So you have muscles close to joints. They're almost always stabilizing, mobilizing. So they're smaller muscles. They work good over time, but they can kind of deactivate if we go too hard. Does that make sense? Glute likes really powerful movement and then it's going to stop. And I would bet most kids in dance have a very strong glute maximus, glute medius minimus. Their deep six have probably not been trained the way they could train them and have so much more success. It's like when you watch that dance, you're like, oh my gosh, the bottom leg is so perfectly turned out. Because I care more about the bottom leg. I'm not teacher. I'm always looking at the bottom leg. And I don't care how high the leg is. If the place is off, it's off. And I would like to bring that back. Care about it. Because that is, to me, the artistry. That's what makes it go.
Is those little simple things.
Beautiful lines that make us go, not make us cringe.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in dance right now that I cringe because I know what's happening in the body. Like a super deep back bend, I don't get impressed. I get a little bit concerned.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's not a beautiful, again, it can be done right. So I shouldn't say it can't, but there are a lot of movements out there that the alignment is so off, they're just forcing their body into a pose that it's not impressive to me. It should be seamless. Everything should be seamless, right?
Yeah.
But so if we teach the activation correctly from the get-go, and it takes more time up front because you have to be so specific. And the glute will take over if you let it.
Yeah.
So you have to be looking at posture. But and again, that's why I use other exercises like knot of the bar, just so they can feel that. So I'm a big like, let's let them feel it, and then they know where it is. Because it's very easy to confuse the two.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the glute maximus doesn't work when you're standing. It's just not a turnout muscle. That's not its job. It's a hip extensor. It can assist in external rotation. It's a powerful external rotator in an extended leg. But I think those are like the little misconceptions that we were all taught. I mean, I don't know how many teachers told me to squeeze my butt.
Yeah.
I happen to have fairly good turnout, so it worked for me. You take somebody that doesn't, it's probably not going to work for them.
Yeah.
They're probably going to be all glute maximus, and if the deep six external hip rotators aren't properly conditioned, we do see a lot of hip injuries because they're a stabilizing muscle too.
Yeah.
So they're really designed to kind of stabilize the pelvis and turn out. But then everything works in like a coordinated effort. Does that make sense? Like there's different, if we can get I always say like, we just need the right muscles doing the right job, and then everything's going to go so much easier because dancers are masters of movement. They will create it.
Yes.
However way they need to. And help them create it the correct way based on anatomy from the get-go. And it's just less polarizing, although it can feel, people get, like I strike nerves because they're like, what are you talking about? Like I've taught that. I'm like, it's okay because I taught that. Like we all taught that. We all said, don't use your hip flexor. And then when we thought about it, I was like, I wonder how you're going to flex your hip. Good luck.
So explain to me the difference between the deep six and that one deep.
Psoas, iliopsoas. So they're on the back of the hip, and the iliopsoas is on the front.
Okay.
So their location's very different.
Okay.
So the iliopsoas comes off the spine.
Okay.
So it originates. It's actually a fat. If you look it up, you're like, that is a serious muscle. Like it's a very thick, powerful muscle, and it's been demonized for sure because we sit so much now that a lot of people have tight hip flexors. Dancers don't usually have. I think they have more tight quads generally, but they usually have weak hip flexors. So because we don't do so much deep, you know what I'm saying? So I think, and a lot of dancers haven't learned to access it. And ironically, so the hip flexor can act as a turnout muscle if it needs. It can, but if the deep six aren't working right, it will try to create turnout even more. So if every muscle is not doing the job it was designed to do, you're just more susceptible to an overuse injury because it's going to overuse it. But if the hip flexor is working primarily as a hip flexor, it's pretty happy. Does that make sense? Doing everything all the time can be fatiguing.
Yeah, right.
So I just think like train them for their job.
Yeah.
Like they were meant to do that. Let them shine. I'm always like, I tell them, do you know how badly your hip flexor wants to do its job? Let's let it. Your turnout muscles want to do their job. Let's find them, and probably those two muscles, if you can train those right, because your glute's a powerful muscle, it's going to figure out how to work. Nobody has to learn. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. There are people that don't know how to activate their glute, but fewer people than really truly don't know how to activate their deep six external hip rotators. And I just call them the turnout muscles for dance terms. I'm like, these are your true turnout muscles. Other muscles can help, but these are so good at it. So why wouldn't we have the muscle that's so good at it do it? It'd be like not using your back to extend your spine. Be like, why wouldn't you use that? But you don't have a lot of other options. So back extension is much more straightforward. Right. So I just think the hip is complex because there's so much that's overcrossed, and so many muscles can do more than one thing. Right. But they are best at one thing. Right. Is what I usually just say. They're best at one thing. Train them to do that, and then they'll assist when needed based on the position of the joint. But if we just train them to be so good at what they do, your body's going to feel so much better. It's going to work in more like homeostasis. Does that make sense? It's like you see when somebody has an injury, you watch them compensate, and then they create so many injuries. You'll even see a muscle that's just like not firing.
Right.
And I think they are more common in like our ball and socket. There's just so much more going on. And so if you have something compensation, the body's always trying to do what you're telling it to do. And it will find a way, especially when we have muscles that can act as secondary flexors or secondary thing. So if they're able, but what happens is you have to like crank the joint into a weird spot to get. So if you want the true beautiful line, use the muscles that were meant to do it.
Yeah.
And then it's so cool when you see it because, oh, that turnout muscle's still working with the leg up here, but your glute doesn't. You can't try. I always tell people, I actually do this. I say devil pay to the front. Now use your glute to hold it. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, can't. I'm like, right. So don't use it standing.
Yeah.
Try to hold it. You can engage it for posture. Or I'd take them to the side. Use your glute. And then they tuck their pelvis. I'm like, that's not the right alignment. So it's just like that turnout muscles do it everywhere. So use those to train it. The glute will do it in certain areas. The hip flexor will do it in certain areas. Those muscles are going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
So does that make sense? I just went down an anatomy rabbit hole.
Actually, I think it's so important for dancers to understand that,
Yes.
but more important for teachers because teachers are the ones that are teaching these kids how to do it all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If you're a school teacher and you teach reading a certain format, right?
Yeah.
Like you follow a curriculum. Dance has not been governed by like an accreditation, and I hope that changes. I'm kind of looking into that currently, actually, and not from a standard of like you need to do this and that. Like again, I just look at everything like what are our best practices and how do we? Because if we're all invested in dancers, then we need to truly invest, and that means we have to sometimes set our egos aside and be like, okay, maybe I'm not as good at doing what I thought, and I want to be better. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be better at something, and saying like, hey, I just didn't know. That's totally fine. Why would you know? Unless you went and took a class, and why would you know? Because you weren't taught it. You can't teach something you weren't taught.
Yeah. Well, we're always talking about this with everyone that we interview. Dance is dance, and it really can only take you so far in life.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, the professionals, they go on and that's their career. But really, what is the peak age of a professional dancer? Like, I
really don't know. I actually would wonder too.
Professional dancers retire a lot earlier, and even just athletes, they retire earlier than say
an accountant.
Right. Yeah.
An accountant.
Just because they have to.
Everybody else.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's some dancers out there, like a dancer that comes from Utah. Megan Fairchild, this year is her like she's retiring this year. She's like in her 40s.
Oh, wow.
I mean, so that is like, that's an old, so she's considered old. Yeah. She dances for New York City Ballet, and she's so fortunate to have such a long career, but that is not very common. Yeah. The world has kind of gone to everything's about health and like we want to take care of ourselves and so we need to do that with dance too. And so that's why I think stuff like this is so important. Like you said, we need to start investing in the health of the dancer because we're not going to be dancing our whole life.
I'm not training dancers. Like I'm really not. I'm training people. Hey, if you love dance right now and you're passionate, do it. Like this is awesome. But also there's going to be so many other things you're going to want to do.
Thanks for listening to part 1 of our interview with Christine Jones. Join us next week for part 2. Until next time, remember, we're here to keep you inspired, keep you motivated, and as always, keep you on stage. Happy dancing!